surround our hearts with peace. Sweet darkness where God and kindness dwells, still our minds to trust all will be well. Quiet joy, troubles ease. Sweet darkness, surround our hearts with peace. Sweet darkness, where God in kindness, still our minds to trust all will be well. Quiet joy, troubles ease. Sweet darkness, surround our hearts with peace. Sing that one more time. Sweet darkness, where God in kindness dwells, still our minds to trust all will be well. Quiet joy, troubles ease. Sweet darkness, surround our hearts with peace.
And I was muted. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. Good to see the panelists who are here. And there is a bunch of you that are out there. And right as it hit 9:30, the numbers, we actually can see how many people are out there. You all clicked in right at 9:30. Well, many of you clicked in before then, but many of you are still clicking in. Um, so I hope all of you are here for the Groves worship this morning. If not, you got a really weird link that somebody handed you, and you are here for something else, so you might want to exit. I want to just give some logistics here this morning. I was in Texas a couple weeks ago at a conference with other pastors, and I was literally bragging to them how the Grove never cancels worship for weather. Like in the last 10 years, we had canceled one time, and it was like 24 inches of snow. Remember, there was an April, like in 2018? Yeah, it was for that. Well, I should have kept my mouth shut because here we are this morning, canceling worship for weather. Um, when we were in the midst of COVID, we jumped right to live stream. We never went through the phase of Zoom worship. So this is actually brand new to us, just to let Bob and Doug know that, who are new with us. We haven't done this before. So it's a little bit of an experiment. And like we say at the Grove, when we try things out, they're going to be great no matter what, right? And you all would be clapping and nodding your heads if I could see you right now. You would be saying, yeah, everything that happens is going to be absolutely great. So I know you'll bear with us if we have some technical things that we need to deal with, or if the panelists are going to need to talk to each other throughout this to keep us all on track. I appreciate that. This is a webinar format, which obviously you've learned already. You can see us, but we can't see you, and you can't see each other. It's just the way that Zoom has this set up. We can actually see all your names, though, and how many of you are out there. And there's are some of you that are still jumping in, so that's good. Pastor Jeremy is going to be monitoring the participants, just kind of seeing who's in there and if anybody uses the raise their hand feature. Jeremy, I see that Gail's got her hand raised, and I'm not sure what that's about, but well, if you could try to work on that, that would be great. And then Pat, can you raise your hand? I think most of you know who he is, oh, and now people are raising their hands because I mentioned it. Pat, most of you guys know Pat. He's, yeah, and Pat's gonna raise his hand. Lovely. Pat's going to be actually out there in the Q&A, which I'll talk about in just a second here. I want to recognize that this doesn't really feel like community building when we do it like this, but it really is the easiest way to get everybody in and make this actually manageable. We aren't going to have music today except for that little bit we had ahead of time. If you need your music fix, obviously go back to previous workshops and pull that up later today. You have the option to change your layout, and there actually is an option that is probably best, and I'm actually going to switch myself to it right now. It's called Speaker View. So if you go to the for most of you, this isn't going to work for everybody, but it's going to work for most of you. The top right corner, there's a view button. And if you click on that and you click on speaker, what's going to happen is the person who is talking is automatically going to show big in your screen and everybody else will show small. So, like I said, I would invite you or encourage you to do that if you know how to do that option. Panelists, you are free to mute or unmute however you want to do it while we're going through here. There is a Q&A button on your little menu there. And if you have tech issues, you can go ahead and pop in there, and Pat will be out there monitoring that, trying to give instructions if anybody needs some tech instructions while we're going here. And then later on, when we do, we'll do a Q&A with Doug, and we'll also use that feature, but I'll give you more explanation and instructions at that point. I'm realizing that I have not yet talked this morning and done my voice exercises, so I apologize. If you've been around the Grove for a while, you know I need to do that before worship because of a sickness I had a few years ago, but I'm going to do my voice exercises as Jeremy talks here, so I'm going to pass it off to you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We started weekly worship at our Cottage Grove location in January of 2022. And since then, we've had a number of people saying, we really need to find a time for us to do joint worship with our Cottage Grove and Woodbury locations. And we've pushed back against that. Apparently, all we needed was a historic blizzard in order to make this happen. So it's fun to be with all of you. Wish we could be seeing you in person, but we're thankful for all of the ways that you are open and willing to pivot along with us. I do want to, at the top, recognize that there might be some guests with us today. We put out an ask to our folks. If you want to invite people that you know, now's a great opportunity for you to invite. Doug has a fantastic following and shared the link on his social media this morning. And so it's possible that we have guests with us today, way more guests than if we were going to have in-person worship this morning. So if you do happen to be a guest with us today, we are honored by your presence on Zoom. We would usually make our way over to you to say hello, but we can't see the 97 of you who are just attendees. So if you happen to be new with us today, we'd love to know that you're here. We actually have an online form that is available if you want to let us know that you're here with us, and so that we can follow up with you. I believe that is right on the front page of our website. Is there a way for us to share it in a chat anywhere? Or not under the webinar?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. If we're able to, we will. Otherwise, if you go to the homepage of our website, it is available there.
Both locations, right, Jeremy? It's on the homepage of both locations. Is that everything?
I think so.
Okay.
Announcements.
Yeah, I'm going to move to some announcements because we're never going to miss a chance to put stuff in front of your eyes about church happenings. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so a couple things. First of all, an engagement opportunity for today, and this is for both Cottage Grove and Woodbury. You all know that we have a Vacation Bible School in the summer, and it is time to get our leadership in place for that. We have kids from both locations and all around the area that come to our Vacation Bible School. If you are interested in being on that team, the options are there for your participation, and the contact for that is family assistant at thegrovemn.church. We are excited about VBS this year and what's happening there. We've been working on it this last week. This is for the Woodbury location. Next Sunday is our annual Mission and Summer Sunday. And for those of you who might not know, we have had a Be in the Hope campaign for the last 11 years. And just a couple months ago, we reached the $1 million mark on money that's raised for ministry and organizations outside of our local church. So our theme for this year's Mission and Summer Sunday is a celebration worth $1 million. We'll have some special treats that Sunday. There'll be ministry tables and activities to do. And because it is Food Share Month, we'd ask you to bring some non-perishable food items or hygiene products to church that day for our local food shelves. And you can do that anytime at either location throughout the month of March. Jeremy, I think this is you.
Yeah, so the end of Lent comes with two important days where we have special services, one at each of our locations. So on Monday, Thursday, we have our worship experience at our Cottage Grove location, happens at 6 p.m. And then we have a meal afterwards. So if you are available to come for that, it's a really special kind of experience. And then we share a meal together afterwards. We'll be putting out a sign-up sheet if you're interested in bringing food to share. And then on Good Friday, we will be gathering at our Woodbury location, 7 p.m. in our Woodbury Chapel.
This is the Woodbury Easter schedule. We'll be getting some postcards out to you so that you can be inviting others to that. Maybe hand one to a neighbor or to a relative or a friend who might not have a place to go on Easter. So for Woodbury, we're going to have acoustic worship down in the chapel at 8 o'clock. We'll do traditional worship at 9, family interactive worship at 10:30. The youth are doing their annual pancake breakfast that morning. And then between the worship services this year, not after the second worship this year, but between the worship services this year, we're going to do our family activities.
Believe it or not, it's Easter in Cottage Grove as well on April 5th. So we have our two services, as always, 9:30 and 11 o'clock. They will be family worship. We also have a pop-up choir that week. So if those of you who are part of the Cottage Grove location would love to be on stage and helping to lead in worship, all ages and abilities are welcome. And then in between the two worship services, we have an egg hunt, which is a great opportunity for families who are attending either service. Or we have community members who just come for the egg hunt as well, which is totally an acceptable option. As Kelly mentioned, we will also be having invitations for you to potentially hand out to folks as invites to our Easter celebrations. I recognize that inviting folks to church can feel anxiety producing or even inappropriate at times. And I want to instead encourage you to consider it as a chance to share with folks that you love and value something that you love and value as well. What we do and the community that we create has a real tangible impact on our lives and can have that on others as well, especially in these times in our country and in our state. And Easter is also a time when people are more open to that type of invitation.
Fantastic. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Carolyn Winslow. Carolyn Winslow is a deaconess in the United Methodist Church. We are so blessed to have her as our director of care. She's gonna start us out with a prayer this morning, which will lead into the Lord's Prayer.
Thanks, Kelly. Good morning. The prayer I'll be sharing this morning was written by Cole Arthur Riley and is included in her book, Black Liturgies. So if you join me in taking a deep breath as we center ourselves as a virtual community in God's presence this morning. God of solidarity, thank you for being a God who enters the suffering of the world, who doesn't run from those in pain, but rushes to the sight of blood and tears. Release us from those empty cravings for unity that come at no cost to the oppressor. Lead us towards spaces of costly advocacy. We confess that in speaking up on behalf of the oppressed, we too soon become enamored with the sound of our own voices. Our egos spoil even our best intentions. Show us when the voices of the vulnerable are being drowned out by the cacophony of the privileged. Guide us into a solidarity that demands something of us. Let us learn to risk ourselves on behalf of the vulnerable, believing that when one of us is harmed, we all are. Help us to remember that justice and liberation are not a scarcity, and that our survival and dignity are wrapped up in one another. And God, keep us from those who will demonize the fight in us, who would prefer us complacent and far from one another. Secure in us the courage to stand, knowing that together we will restore what the world has tried to suffocate in us. Amen. And now let us join together in praying the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. I forgot to mention earlier, you might be wondering where Pastor Laura is, and this is her first Sunday off since she has started with us. So I'm guessing she may be in that participant list. I'm not sure if she is or not, but I'm guessing maybe they got stuck at home instead of doing the traveling they were anticipating, but we'll see. We'll see if she chimes in. We're going to move to our Being the Hope speakers. So at the Grove, we have the tradition during Lent that we celebrate some of the organizations that we support with our Being the Hope funds. These are the organizations outside of our local church that are doing incredible work growing goodness, and we are able to build our capacity and do so much more when we partner with them. And one way we can do that is through serving them and letting other people know about those organizations. And we can support them financially too. So we're going to have two speakers. One had planned to be in Woodbury and one had planned to be in Cottage Grove today. So they're both going to take a little bit of time to speak. I think we're going to have Mark Pellerate go first. Now, again, some of you are probably wondering, Mark, he's not from outside of our local church. What's this all about? Well, Mark actually came to the racial justice team and the compassion and justice team, I don't know, about a year ago, probably, and asked some questions about an honor tax system and asked if we would consider doing that. So he's here today to talk about that.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Am I coming through okay? Okay, great. Yes, I'm Mark Pellerite. My wife, Lori, and I are longtime members of the Grove. And this morning, it's my pleasure to get to say a few words about the Minnesota Makose Honor Land Tax. This is 25 Being the Hope campaign recipients. The Grove's land acknowledgement statement, which was developed over the last couple of years, notes that the church is located on Dakota land obtained unjustly by the United States. It also contains a pledge to address errors of the past while striving to create a better tomorrow for Minnesota's indigenous community. This is all consistent with the Grove's stated mission to grow goodness. I was part of the group that researched and developed the land acknowledgement statement. So that's why I'm here, and this issue is front and center with me. The Minnesota Makose Honor Land Tax is a very real means for putting the words of our land acknowledgement statement into action. It's a voluntary payment that is made directly to the Dakota community by current occupants of their ancestral lands. It's a way to acknowledge our access to stolen land and the fact that we all benefit from it, as well as to respect Dakota sovereignty. The funds contributed go directly to the Lower Sioux community in Morton, Minnesota. So this is a very regional recipient. And the funds are used to provide support in very diverse areas, including youth programs, land repurchase, and public education. Our support also represents an opportunity for us to develop a relationship with the Lower Sioux community that extends beyond just funding. While we can't undo the past, this is a meaningful way to share the wealth with our Dakota neighbors. And in an article on voluntary land taxes, the indigenous writer Sana Crow notes, and I quote, "Indigenous communities need resources, not apologies. If you can't offer services or labor for native communities, the best way is to spread wealth, or perhaps more accurately, return wealth, and support communities so that they have the resources to be autonomous," end quote. So through our Being the Hope campaign, the Grove made a $1,000 contribution to the Minnesota Makose Honor Land tax in 2025, and it's my hope that we will be able to repeat this in 2026. So that's it. I just want to say thanks all for efforts to grow goodness.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Just appreciate your awareness around that and educating both teams on that. I'm going to turn it over to Bob Dickey. So Bob is from the Connect Center down in Cottage Grove, and we love this organization so much. Several of our teams do donation drives for them at different points out throughout the year. I have had many times where I have had youth, homeless folks come to me, and because the Connect Center knows us and I know the Connect Center, it's an easy connection for me to get them hooked up with services there. So Bob, I think you're unmuted already. You might want to move your camera either down or up just a little bit to show your whole face. There you go. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yes, we have an office in Cottage Grove, and we also share an office with Basic Needs. They're a close partner of ours as well, helping youth and families, low-income families, with usually housing insecurity, but also access to coordinated services. No one usually comes to us that doesn't have several things going on in their lives that need that level of intense and careful and prayerful conversation with them about how can we help you meet your goals. And sometimes it's very simple. Could be something like, I need to be able to pay my rent. That sounds simple, but often it isn't so simple. Or it could be very complex. I've been told by my parents I can't live in our home anymore, and I need to find some place to live. And after months of couch hopping, going from one friend's house to another friend's house to another friend's house, they have the tendency to run out their stay. They can't stay there anymore. And that's when we get a phone call or from you or from someone else, particularly from the schools and school guidance counselors saying, I've got a young person who's really, really in a bad spot. Because what we worry about the most is that if an organization that really doesn't care about that young person's needs, if somebody else contacts them first, there's a very high probability that they'll be trafficked. And I know our county attorney has been very, very concerned about that growing trend in Washington County, not just in the south part of the county, but in the Stillwater area where we have an office as well. So it's important to be that first resource, because that can be literally life-saving and for certain life-changing. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell.
Thanks, Bob. If you are on a team at the Grove or just a motivated person and want to do a collection drive for the Connect Center, I think it's mostly snacks that you guys look for when you get stuff from and hygiene products. Is that right, Bob?
It is. There's another thing that I'll mention that has become very current, sadly, but it is. We still have a tremendous number of people who are living in their cars. And gas prices are going crazy right now. And so one of the big needs for someone who's living in their car is that they have the gasoline to be able to keep their engine running. And so gas cards for holiday or quick trip are also very, very important. And we're very careful how we hand them out to people. We want to absolutely make sure they're vetted and it's not just somebody who's heard we do this, but someone who really needs that help. So that's also really critical too. And when the weather is cold, like it's winter again, we always can use blankets and those kinds of things that people can keep with them in a car.
So if you are interested in leading a drive through either location, you can reach out to Pastor Jeremy at Cottage Grove or Debbie Crank at the Woodbury location. Thank you so much, Bob.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. I think I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy.
Yep. So we were talking about the Being the Hope campaign and your generosity about supporting organizations doing amazing work outside of the four walls of the church. And we like to remind you on a weekly basis that all that we do inside the four walls of the church are only made possible because of the generosity of folks like you. I got a reminder on Facebook memory 6 years ago today. We were scrambling to pull together a different online worship experience because COVID was shutting everything down.
Right.
And we were not prepared. We were not prepared at all. So we were scrambling to pull things together. We were scrambling to find a webcam, like literally just a webcam. And I found the webcam. This is the webcam that we did our first online worship experience with. Someone recorded a video and I literally held my phone up in front of the webcam like this. It was terrible. However, we've adapted quite a bit in the last 6 years, and we have been able to build out our technology that allow people to experience worship with us, even when they're not able to physically be with us. There's folks that are homebound who are not able to, who would love to join us in worship, but are not able to do so. We have folks that are traveling and want to stay connected to their faith community and are able to do it because of our technology. And then we have folks who are checking us out for the first time before showing up in person because they want to get a taste of what our churches are like. And so again, this makes a real tangible difference in people's lives. It's only made possible because of your generosity. So I just want to highlight a few different ways to give. You can give online. If you scan that first QR code or go to either of our websites, there are options to give to either location. You can always do it via snail mail. That is still a valid option for you to be able to contribute to your church. And then 2 location-specific ways. We have a Venmo account for our Cottage Grove location, which has served as a really good way for people to give conveniently for the first time. And then if you're a part of our Woodbury location, you can also give via our app.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just appreciate the generosity both inside the walls and outside the walls of the Grove. So I'm going to introduce Doug here. He's going to spend some time doing a version of the sermon he was preparing for us, and then we'll do a Q&A with him afterwards. There's his website if you guys are looking to check out some more information on him. So when we were planning this worship series, Laura, Jeremy, and I, one of the things that we were thinking about is what resources we were going to be relying on from the outside. You all have heard from us that we're concerned about Christian nationalism and the impact that it is having on the Christian church in America right now. But we're not really experts on this other than like we live and breathe this world. So we knew we were going to need to be relying on some folks from the outside world to get us prepped and prepared to be able to take on this pretty complex topic during this Lent. So one of those voices that I knew about is Doug, and he just happens to live in Minneapolis, actually Edina, to be perfectly correct there. So I reached out to him just seeing his super busy schedule because he travels the country in this bus that's in this picture here, doing work with Vote Common Good. And it just happened to work out until we got forecasted for snow, but it's still working out because he's still here. So he's an author. He's got several books out. He was a pastor in Minneapolis, social activist, executive director of Vote Common Good. There's a Christian nationalism curriculum that they have out on their website. The last thing that I would just mention is I actually know of Doug, because my seminary internship was at the church that he had founded and was serving back in, I think it was like 2015 or something like that, which feels forever ago right now. So I got to spend a year at Solomon's Porch and learned a lot from Doug. So if you ever wonder why I do weird things in leadership that I do, blame it on Doug. It's his fault because that community shaped me in terms of how I think about the church. So with that, Doug, I'm going to hand it over to you. And when you're done, we'll do a Q&A. Now, I know we always clap for our people. So imagine clapping in the background, that everybody's clapping as you're coming up to the microphone there.
Well, thank you, Kelly, and thanks to people of the Grove. I'm super glad to be here, honestly. I would have loved to have been at either one of the campuses when Kelly sent me a note and said, hey, what week could work for you, and do you have a preference of campuses? Maybe like a lot of you, I'm glad to meet with you anywhere. And I was kind of thinking, you all are managing 2 worshiping campuses, but you look on this Zoom and there's like 125 locations right now. And I actually really like that. I like the idea that Christianity is not bound to a place, that Christianity is not bound to any group of people, that not only are there, on this morning's The Grove worship, 125 locations where this is taking place. And in a lot of your houses, probably 2 or 3 people, gathered around a screen, or someone's in the kitchen working on breakfast or something, and there's people milling around. But there's also churches all over the Twin Cities. Obviously, there's churches around the world. There are millions of people, billion people, millions of places. So Christianity is a really big story. That's part of what's been exciting to me about it. I wasn't raised in Christianity. I grew up in a family with no religious background at all. We didn't talk about religion. There was never a Sunday as a kid where I thought I was skipping church. I just didn't think about it. Maybe the way you don't feel like you're skipping synagogue on a Saturday. Well, I didn't feel like I had a expectation to be in Christianity. But when I got in as a teenager, I really got in. And it was really life-saving to me and so compelling. And I found the story of Jesus and the call to be somebody who's going to live out the life and teachings of Jesus in our own day, such an exciting thing to do. So this idea that Christianity is not just for some of us, but for everyone. That Christianity doesn't exist to benefit the few, but its call is to bless the world. That's a compelling story. And truthfully, that's the opposite of what Christian nationalism is. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Christian nationalism today. I'll probably come back to your community and we'll talk a lot about, I'll do a whole workshop and seminar on responding to Christian nationalism and all, because I think in some ways you can sum up Christian nationalism like this. It's the belief that the United States government derives its authority from Christianity and exists as a government to give preferential treatment to Christianity. So the belief of Christian nationalists is, hey, we're Christian around here in this country, and therefore we should have more privilege than any other belief, any other religion, any other way of being. And that, even if it were true, which it is not, we were not founded as a Christian nation. There's explicit narratives in the Constitution, the very first amendment, saying that Congress shall establish no law that gives preference to any religion. It's called the Establishment Clause. But even if it were true, Christians would reject it. Jesus following Christians would reject Christian nationalism's essential call that our faith should first privilege us. Like, there's no way you tell the Jesus story and end up with, hey, let's get on the side of the people who are going to get the most benefit. It is not a benefit membership system in Christianity. So this is really at the heart of it, that our call to be Christian people, if that's how you see yourself, is to join the larger community of humanity and to be a benefit and blessing for the world. So all of our organizing, these wonderful announcements that you heard, these invitations to participate in helping people that live in their cars, and some of us coming to recognition and realization about the systems and structures that have arrived us where we have found ourselves today, why we own property the way we do, why we're in this area, why it's called Minnesota. I mean, these are all things that you can come to an understanding of and then recognize that your faith compels you to care about everyone equally. Like this is really at the heart of it. And look, even in the Jesus narratives, you see how the functional religion around Jesus and the one that he was participating in, and that Jesus functioning as a prophetic voice, was trying to call the people of his communities to look more broadly than just themselves. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Love your enemy as you love yourself. The Good Samaritan. Samaritans were seen as a different community of people from the Jewish community that Jesus was a part of. And the Jewish community that Jesus was a part of had a tendency to call those people terrorists and against the success of Israel. And Jesus says, oh no, you should learn a lot from those people. The them should be seen as a larger part of a we. And look, this whole question of who's the we and how are we a we, it's a big question for our country because we decided to form a person-driven democracy around we-ism, not us versus them. Well, that's also something that our Christian faith compels us to. It doesn't make our government Christian. We just share those things in common. So I remember being in Christianity, and one of the first passages that I was introduced to, I don't know. See, when people grow up in church, they often can't remember the first passages that they saw, but they might remember some that had meaning to them. Like I remember, because I got into Christianity with no background. I was almost 17 years old. And I remember reading the book of Ephesians. I'm not sure why. I was in with Christians who really liked to memorize Bible passages. So there were certain selected passages from the Bible that we would memorize and we would quote and then form thoughts around, It's sort of like people who memorize lines from movies, like you got a bunch of lines from The Princess Bride or from, some Will Ferrell movie running through your head. That's the way we were about the Bible. We just had pull quotes from different parts of the Bible. But some of them have stuck with me and are really powerful. And one of them comes from the book of Ephesians. Now, the book of Ephesians is a letter written from the Apostle Paul, or at least from the community of the Apostle Paul, sent to people living in what is now modern-day Turkey. So Christianity in the first 30, 40, 50, 60 years had started to spread. And look, Christianity was so small and so fractional, had started within a sect of Judaism and then had expanded to people who were not Jews. Bible language for those are Gentiles. I'm a Gentile. Maybe you're a Gentile. I mean, we don't walk around saying we're Gentiles, right? But a lot of my Jewish friends recognize that I'm a Gentile. But in the early movement of Christianity, it was spreading to non-Jewish communities. And so there were people having to figure out, how do we even understand any of this? I mean, these are in the early days of Christianity. Before the Gospels were written down, they had just heard rumors of things. Those people weren't trying to figure out, how to run a version of a Zoom meeting, or is worship going to run a little long, or are we going to make sure that we have the right components in our meeting? I mean, all the stuff that so many of us as pastors and church leaders and people that are going to churches think about all the time. It was just a period of Christianity where it was like closer to what we're doing now. People in their homes, talking with folks they've never met, hearing things that feel new to them, and trying to organize their lives in a way that they feel like they could be a part of this flow of spirituality, but also useful for the life that they wanted to live. So in that context, while the Apostle Paul is under arrest by the Roman government, so we're now living in a period of time, and I do a lot of political work, and I am informed by my Christian faith about the way I want to do our political work. And we're now in a situation where a lot of us feel, especially those of us in Minneapolis, and now people in Vermont, as people were in Charlotte and Chicago and Los Angeles and Portland, that our government is hostile to our well-being and our success. And there's a lot of people in America who felt like the government in America has always been hostile to their well-being and their success. So there's a narrative that Christianity's beginning found itself in, where it was not saying, how do we take over the government, but how do we protect ourselves from it? Because the story we're going to tell in a few weeks in churches around Lent and Easter, and then, or the Holy Week and then Easter, is the story of Jesus being crucified by the ruling religious officials in collaboration with the government. Now, to me, I find some real correspondence in that to what I'm feeling like is happening in the world today. So the faith that I hold helps me understand this, because Paul, a prisoner of that very system, writes a letter to a group of people living in Ephesus, we call now modern-day Turkey. He writes in this letter, and in it, in chapter 6, the old stuff from my life, 40 years ago is still rolling around there. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Now, I'm not going to stop after every sentence, but let me just point out that what Paul is not saying is, be strong in your nation. Be strong as a member of your nationality. He's swapping where someone's sense of safety and strength comes from into trusting in the Lord and the Lord's mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you may take a stand against the devil's schemes. Now that kind of language is not, I don't use devil's schemes language, and whatever pops into my head when I think of the devil, maybe whatever pops into your head when you think about the devil, is probably not what popped into the Apostle Paul's head or people in Ephesus when some version of that word in the Greek language that he wrote in would have conveyed to them. What I think he's getting at is that there's something that's on the side of God, and then there's something that's opposite of the side of God. And there's a bunch of schemes. And then it goes on with this great line. And this captured me in my early days. It captures me today. It funds the idea of the work that I do in religion and politics. I think it can fund the way we respond in the current situation that we find ourselves in this country. It goes on to write, our struggle is not against flesh and blood. My interpretation is not against people. It's against rulers and authorities and powers. Rules, authorities, powers. Modern day language, we might call that the system. The system people choose to be a part of, and they choose to fund, and they choose to give their allegiance to. So our battle is not against people. It's against this system of a dark world and spiritual forces in these heavenly realms. Now, I don't think Paul is like trying to get out of the body. He knows he is literally, as he writes in this letter earlier, in chains for this. He knows there are guards, there are people that he's looking at who are the people who are using this system to keep him bound up. He knows the people in Ephesus are in fear of their own government coming after them or their own religious leaders coming after them. So he's describing, I think, this idea that our battle is not against these people. It's against these powers and principalities and systems and structures that function in our world. And then he goes on to say, and pray in the Spirit in all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and keep on praying for the Lord's people. Okay, so this idea that we're not battling against flesh and blood and people, but against systems and powers. The struggle with that always is systems and structures and powers tend to be put into place by other people. You can sort of fast forward a few weeks into the Lent week, into the Holy Week, where Jesus while being crucified by the very same system Paul probably has in mind, says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. They're swept up in something. So it feels to me like some of our call is that we have to dig into this deep Christian tradition of loving our enemy and resisting the powers and principalities and systems and structures that they might even be a part of. That tension, that's hard. That thing has been played out in statement and sermon of Jesus, one after the other, of writers of early Christianity, writers of the mid-century Christianity, people trying to figure it out today. It is the human struggle to not battle against people and to demonize people while we try to heal the world and fix the systems and structures. I don't know that I always like the word essential on things, like you have to have it. Because I'll tell you, one of the things about Christianity is, man, there's very few things you sort of have to have. I mean, you don't have to have the Bible. These people in Ephesus didn't have it. You don't have to have systems and structures. Early Christians didn't have it. You don't have to be able to read. There's just so many things you don't have to have. But maybe a thing that we need is the commitment to love that which God loves. And God loves everyone. And God resists systems and structures and powers of evil. So a month and a half ago or so, when ICE was attacking people in the city of Minneapolis, I was out on the street a whole bunch and making videos and trying to keep people up to date on what's going on, encouraging things that are happening. Because, I run an organization. Our organization was fully engaged, but also at a personal level, I didn't know what to do. Maybe you all feel that same way. Like what do you do when there's 3,000 masked government officials, unnamed, killing people on your streets? So I went out and we met people and shot videos. One of the videos that I recorded and then put on Instagram, and I'm not an Instagram influencer. Like, I don't know, I have like 10,000 followers on Instagram, 30, 40, 50,000 people on Facebook, which sounds like a lot, but it's not. But this one video, nearly 5 million views, shared 70,000 times. It's what's called in the business a viral video. And why did it go viral? Because it had a message in it coming from Minneapolis that I think to millions of people, they thought, there's our way out. I was at an event that was put together by the people, a little startup effort called Singing Resistance. Some friends of mine are part of it, heard about it. They met at a church. We met down at Westminster Presbyterian Church in downtown Minneapolis, and then did a processional, a few thousand of us on the street, singing songs that they had written, very simple chorus-like songs, walking the streets, going up to hotels where ICE agents were staying. Because one narrative on the street, if you haven't heard it, is blank ICE, blank ICE, blank ICE. So there's a narrative of that's what we think of ICE, and it becomes very personal. And then there's one that says that's true, and the people who are operating that system, those people, we want to call them out of that system. Come and join us. So one of the messages put together, one of the songs, was sung outside of the Marriott Hotel downtown. I'm going to show you that video and have the lyrics to the simple little song we were singing, and then we'll talk about it after we watch it.
Doug, do you have sound on your end?
Yeah, do you not hear it?
Uh-uh.
No sound.
Oh, I'm so sorry about
That's
that.
okay.
Okay, y'all. Well, that's heartbreaking. All right. Well, let me just tell you what it says. I'm describing we're outside the hotel. We're singing to the ICE agents, and these beautiful voices, I'm going to try to find a way for you to hear this, are singing, "We walk the same ground, but we've been torn apart. Put down your weapons and come sing your part." And there's thousands of people facing this ICE hotel. And while they are singing these hey, I'm wondering if you're able to hear it now. Did that change?
Didn't change it. It's okay.
Sorry about that. Hey, I don't know. You could be like 5 million other people and go onto my Instagram channel and watch the video. It's incredible. About 2.5 minutes of thousands of people singing, "Put down your weapons. The system has torn us apart. Come out and join us and do your part." I think this is at the root and the core of what the common good is. And a common good Christianity believes that God is on the side of all of us and God wants to bring us together. And the systems and powers and structures, or as Paul would put it, the rules, the authorities, and the powers of this dark world that function in these systems of heavenly realms, they rip us apart. And we're being called to be brought back together. That narrative, I mean, this is what you see in the Jesus story where denier and betrayer are welcomed in. I mean, there's some reason why in the Gospels they keep the story of Peter's betrayals, Judas's betrayals, the disciples running and leaving, Thomas's doubting, and yet they're all included. That the story of God through Jesus is not to exclude anyone, but to invite everyone back in. Forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And you can say, and I've said it, and sometimes we know, like, oh, no, there's people who know exactly what they're doing. I think Jesus is talking at a different level of knowing. I think he's talking about a different kind of understanding. So as we put together the work that we do in our world, we had to try to say, well, if Christian nationalism is not what we want, and a larger sense of we is what we need, what could that look like? So we put together an articulation. And it reads like this. When we talk about the common good, we say, well, when the Hebrew scriptures say to treat the alien and the refugee as you would want to be treated because God desires compassion for the widow and the orphan and the poor and the vulnerable, they're calling people to seek the common good. And when Jesus says to love your neighbor as yourself, and when Paul says to not seek your own interests, but also the interests of others, and when John and James say that no one can say they love God or have faith in God if they fail to demonstrate their love for their neighbor, they're calling people to seek the common good. And when the Quran says that no one is a believer until they desire for their brother or their sister what they desire for themselves, and teaches that God made us different so that we would seek to understand and know one another, the Quran is calling humanity to seek the common good. When great leaders of Sikhism say to value others as you would value yourself and to avoid creating enmity with anyone because God is within everyone. When the Taoists say to regard your neighbor's gain or loss as your own. When the Buddhists and the Hindus say, do not hurt others in ways that you would find hurtful. Or when secular humanists advocate for the principle of reciprocity, they call for humanity to seek the common good. This means that good-hearted Christians and Jews and Muslims and people of all traditions and faith and no faith cannot simply vote or act for what is best for themselves as individuals or even what's best for their religion, for their party, for their race, or for their nation alone, but must be concerned for the common good. Or to put it differently, selfish people of every religion and tradition vote and act for self-interest or partisan interest alone. But good people of every religion vote and act for the common good. So this, I love that articulation. That's on our website. You can find it there. I think it's worth sharing with other people. I think it helps to expand what we mean when we say we're all in this thing together, that God so loves the world. But I also think it's a very personal thing that can land for each of us. There are battles that we're going to fight, but let's not fight each other. Let's not hate each other. Let's free one another from the systems and structures that pit us against each other and tell us that our best option is to be opposed to each other. And then maybe we can hold that goodness. We can hold that faith for and in one another as we hold our faith for and in God. Well, I wish I could have been there and shared these things more personally and intimately with you and had a chance to chat afterward. But I think if there's still time, we have a chance to chat about some of these things.
Yeah.
Is that right, Kelly?
Yeah, that totally works. So imagine everybody clapping, all 125 people, and probably the 300 or 400 that'll watch it afterwards. Clapping.
you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So there is some questions in the chat there. And if others, not the chat, the Q&A, if others want to add a question there, we'll raise those to the top. I actually have a couple to start here. And one of them is a question that Kevin actually asked. So Kevin asked, any advice on how to keep communication open with other citizens that support things that I don't agree with? And one of the things that we've been hearing through this worship series, but not just this series, we hear this a lot. We have huge diversity of church backgrounds at the Grove, and we've got quite a few post-evangelicals that came out of churches at some point in their life, which probably had Christian nationalism ideology within them. So they've got family members who are still there, and they can't even have conversations. Like the amount of tears that have been shed to the pastors from folks who are like, I don't have a relationship with my parents or my siblings anymore, or my friends anymore. Yeah. What advice do you have for maintaining those relationships and staying in relationship?
Well, look, that is a crucially important question. I feel that myself. My own family has people who the level of disagreement can feel existential. It's hard to keep a family chat going. Some people come and go all the time. A bunch of no-talk rules that go into place. There's a bunch of broken hearts. So look, I get it. And we do work around this as an organization. I try to do work around this stuff personally and professionally. It's really hard. It's one of the parts of our life that demand a greater level of maturity than we often have. But I would say these two things. Not every topic is important to talk about with every person all the time. You're not required to talk about everything all the time. And if you can have an agreement about what you can talk about and can't talk about, and that feels positive for each of you, okay. But if you do want to talk about things and the other person might not, or you feel resistance, or you feel that you're going to get the negative side of it, the idea that if you want to be understood, begin by understanding. Other words for that is create greater levels of empathy. When it comes to disagreements with people about things that matter to them, like there's things we can disagree about that kind of don't matter, but we put a lot of energy into them, sports, I don't know, musical styles, ingredients in a hot dish. Like there's some things, you can have a pretty doozy fight about, but they're not about they don't feel like it's a personal thing. Look, if any of those things have become personal for you, reevaluate your level of commitment to sports or music or food. Start with the question in your own mind. What does this person believe? And try to ask them. Why do they believe it? Those are good questions. But the third is the real doozy. What does that belief do for you? How does it function in your life? Because until we understand what a core belief that we disagree with another person about, what function it plays in their life, what it's doing for them. See, core beliefs don't just roll around in our head. They function and they work in creating a life that makes sense. So what is it that is producing? And here's the hardest thing. Take people at their word and then ask them to keep talking. The most powerful statement that I have found you can use in a conversation of disagreement with someone is, say more about that. Whenever we are invited to say more about something, we will run out of things that we have to say about it. And once someone has said like, okay, I think that's it, that's all I've got, that's then your invitation to engage. But what a lot of us end up doing, and happens to a lot of us, is people tell us and we tell other people what their motivation is, why they believe that, what it does in their life. Oh, you do this because of, and I'll tell you, it just rarely is accurate. If you've ever been on the other side of someone telling you why you believe something, rarely do you think like, well, you nailed me on that one. You really got it. You landed that, you landed that dart right in the center of the bullseye. Rarely does that happen. So empathy, curiosity, and say more about that is probably the best thing. But look, a lot of us, if you come from a situation where you've got family conflict, you've lost friends. I mean, I have neighbors I don't talk to. It's really bad. Really, really bad. What many of us are dealing with here is the pain of loss. So we're in a grief moment. And anger covers grief. And vitriol is an easy, cheap replacement for hurt. And until we get to our own point where we realize it kind of hurts me a lot, I am sad about this. Sometimes the only other option we have is to pull away or to be angry or to push back and all the rest of it. So I'm not sure that's totally helpful. I think the best thing you can do is keep talking about it and to keep sharing with people what that struggle feels like for each other.
Yeah. Yeah. So this next question is a little bit more kind of on the politics side of this, because you do political work, and you may or may not be able to answer this, and it's okay if you can't. But one of the questions is related to the security around voting, and what we can do to try to keep our voting systems secure. That came in from Wally. I'm going to open that up just to make sure I got that
Particularly,
question.
yeah, direct actions to protect integrity at the polling places specifically.
Thanks, Pat.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal in America. We've never been good at it. America has had a habit of restricting who can vote. Land ownership, gender, race, criminal background. Can you find your ID? Did you register properly? I mean, these are all things that our system of voting has made it difficult on people to vote. So there's a big systemic struggle for people to be able to access to vote. There are a number of groups that you can get involved with, from, this is going to sound super old-timey, from the women,
League of Women Voters.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay. We got a billion of them in our church, men and women.
Good. It's actually a great group. There's people that are filing lawsuits. about changes in legal status. There are legal observers who can go.
Yeah.
But I will suggest to you this: the best thing we can do is get everyone you know to go and vote.
Oh.
I mean, in some ways, we can't anticipate all the chicanery that is going to go on. Most people feel like their votes really don't matter, and here's why. Because most people's votes really don't matter. Like, the outcome in 90% of elections don't matter if one or two people do a thing or not. So we have a weirdly demotivated system of asking people to do something super important. So it's really important for people to continue to be part of the process of voting for the times when it will matter. So most of the time, the other people who live around you, there's so many of them that your one contribution doesn't make a difference until it does. And we could tell all kinds of stories of 512 votes in Florida or 87 votes here or there. Like, we could, but reorienting that voting, and look, I run a group called Vote Common Good, so I kind of care about voting, but it's not the point. Good representation in a representative democracy is the point. So helping people to be engaged in the political system, especially when they don't like it, and barely people do, and even more so when they don't understand it. Most people don't know, why am I voting right now? Like, what's a primary and what's a runoff and what's a special election and why it's not even November, and we travel around the country and do events for people running for Congress, and they'll come up to us this fall when we go out and do events in Congress, and they'll say, like, why are we voting right now? It's like, it's not a presidential year. The president's not on the ballot. We're like, well, Congress members, people in the House of Representatives, they run every 2 years. The president's election is every 4 years, and senators are every 6 years. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, these are people that came to a voting event. Like, they're motivated enough to show up, but they don't know. So help people to not feel silly. It never works to make somebody feel dumb. It always helps to say to somebody, come on in, and if this gets confusing or something, somebody can explain it to you. So if you're into voting, don't stop being the voting cheerleader. But also know most people are like, oh, good golly. I mean, look, I work in religion and politics. I'm somebody people just don't want to talk to about, the two most important things in my work life. And you might feel that way too. So you just have to find other ways to be there for the moment when they do want to talk about it.
Yeah. Thanks. Another question here is, there's so much discouragement that happens in this because, again, we're watching family members or friends or neighbors go down a path that we're not going down. And there's just sometimes just this sense of hopelessness that just kind of it's like a blanket that just lays over us sometimes. The person, Lori, was asking if there's any kind of breakthrough story or moment that you've had with somebody that could serve as kind of a beacon of hope for us. And Lori, I got to tell you, if you need some of those, come to me too. We've had some during this worship series with some church members too. But go ahead, Doug. Yeah.
Is that right? Great. Yeah. I can give you my It's Friday, but Sunday's a Coming sermon if you want that one. No. Okay. I will tell you a story. We were doing an event, that bus that Kelly showed at the beginning. We travel around in vehicles that look like that. So we were doing an event for somebody running for the state legislature in Pennsylvania, what we call the state legislature. And we had talked to their campaign about doing these events because we set up events, we invite faith voters, we introduce candidates that faith voters often wouldn't know to these people, and we do these outdoor events with the bus and chairs and sound systems and speakers and musicians and all this stuff. So we talked to the campaign and said, we'd like to do an event. They said, yeah, that'd be great. And then we said, we need a location. So we brainstormed. They said, well, there's this restaurant that's closed, but has this big parking lot. It's in this great spot. I think we could do it there, and it'd be a really wonderful spot. So we said, fabulous. And we were doing lots of events every day, day after day. And they said, wonderful. So it's a Sunday afternoon. We show up. The event's going to be at 1:00. We're there at noon. We're getting all set up. Bus, chairs, sound system. This pickup truck comes rolling in. kind of fast into the parking lot. Driver's door whips open. This guy gets out and he's clearly agitated. And I see him and he looks over and sees me. And I walk up to him. I said, hey, welcome. He goes, what the hell are you doing here? I said, well, we're going to have this event for this candidate and we're doing this Faith, Hope, and Love, calling us to support democracy for all. And he goes, well, why are you here? This is my restaurant. I'm a Trump-supporting, gun-carrying Christian coming back from church, and I pull up and see all you people in my parking lot. Get out of here. And he is mad. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And at that moment, I realize we didn't call the restaurant to ask for permission. Clearly, the campaign didn't call the restaurant. We just all agreed we should do the restaurant. So we're in this guy's, literally in his parking lot. And he is agitated. And he says, well, okay, so tell me again what's happening. And I said, that person over there is running for, he goes, well, let me go talk to him. And he goes over and he talks to him and he comes back. And he said, okay, all right, I don't know what to do here, but you guys are clearly set up. Just do your event and then get out of here as fast as you can. And I thought, wow, I'm looking at a modern day Good Samaritan. Because frankly, if I owned a restaurant and a bunch of people in red hats pulled up and were running an event there, I don't think I would have said, just do your event and then leave when you can. So he gets on his little tractor and is mowing the lawn out behind us. And there's a couple of big semi-trucks, trailers that are parked there. After our event is done, I grabbed 2 beers and walked out, which tells you what's on our bus. But I grabbed 2 beers and I walked out to him and I had a $100 bill. And I said, I'd like to rent your lot for $100. And here's 2 beers and you can have both of them. But if you'd be willing to have one with me, I'd love to have a beer with you. And thank you for letting us meet here. He goes, that's a great idea. Why don't we do it over by your bus? So he drives his tractor over by the bus. So we sit down together on his tractor. We're roughly the same age. He said, everything that I own is in that trailer right there. We're moving to South Carolina. I can't stand living in this state anymore with its liberal representation. Like, this guy is really against all this. And then he said this. He said, but you know what? I was coming from church today. When I came here, I was just left church. And I was sitting in church and I was thinking, we used to have people who disagreed on politics around here. Now we just all think the same. He said, I thought my faith was supposed to help me connect with people who are different from me. And my church has become people that just all think alike. And I was thinking about that when I pulled up here, and then there you all are. Christian people, he said, I can see by your stuff, who think really differently than me. And we hit it off, and he has this restaurant, and he wanted me to buy the restaurant, have my wife run a yoga studio in there because he's getting out of town and nobody had bought his restaurant. His restaurant, he made it through COVID, and he was really proud of that. But he was heartbroken. And he was heartbroken that he thought his faith was calling him to a wider we, and he found out it was calling him to a narrower us versus them. And I looked at this guy and I just thought, he did what I don't think I could do. And look, if that was a one-off story, but we have traveled the country, and I will tell you, people who are totally opposed to the political outcomes that I want to see in this country, and people who otherwise sometimes act horribly, also act wonderfully for us, to us, and with us. It's wild. I can't always say that about people who agree with me politically. Sometimes we can get a little tight on the yeses and nos about everything, but some of these people are incredible. And he's trapped and I'm trapped. And so we're imprisoned together in this system. And once we saw each other as co-laborers to get out of this prison, and he's not the problem and I'm not the problem, maybe something can open up.
Yeah. That's a great story to kind of end this part with. I just want to mention, Brandon kind of talked about this in the questions there, and I think it's an important thing to raise up is that I think people will look at an organization like yours or you and think, oh, you're just like against against something. You're against the Red Hats, or you're against Christian nationalism, or you're against MAGA, or whatever it is, and kind of like put those people down. But the difference in the approach that you have, that Brandon's picking up here, is like, this isn't so much about being against people than calling people in, and kind of like expanding, we call that expanding the circle of inclusion here at the Grove, and saying, yeah, come and join us in this work. Yeah, just a comment or two on that.
Yeah. Well, look, I learned some of this from my friend Tom, who worked at Lino Lakes Prison in the recovery program. And he said, as a chemical dependency counselor that works with people who are addicted, he said the thing that I had to learn was not to say to them, why would you keep doing such a bad thing? You look at what your drug addiction has done to you. He said, I had to realize that for many of them, they believe that the use of their chemical addiction was their current best choice. So what I needed to do was not to tell them that was a bad choice, but to give them an alternative, a better first choice option. And that mind shift is crucial. There's a sensitive way that we have to do this work to say to people, look, I actually think this political perspective you hold is harmful for you, and it's harmful for a bunch of others. And if there can be another way for you, I'd love to offer that. That can sound pejorative, and it can be. But it also can be, I'm not blaming you. Now, I'm infuriated, and I am absolutely dumbfounded when the people that I know in my life who told me for decades what their priorities were seem to swap those out. So the curiosity of, how did that become your current best choice? That's something that, for me, that just lands me in a different place, because people are amazingly curious. We are a curious species, and we can love people and be totally baffled by the sheer horror that they do. Because I'll tell you, you travel the world, people around the world will say that about you. If you're the best kind of American you thought you could be, they would still be like, what are you people thinking? So we're all trapped inside of a world that we think makes sense and to someone else doesn't. And that's a shared human capacity.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for that approach too. There is many people out there doing this work where we're just continuing to go at battle with each other, but to create those openings and those places where we actually can weave together, I think is incredible work. And thank you for that in the world. Pastor Jeremy, I think I'm going to toss it to you.
All right. Well, as has been said multiple times this morning, our mission as a church is to grow goodness. And one of our 4 values is to cultivate the common good. So I am incredibly thankful for you, Doug, and your organization, Vote Common Good, right in there. Thankful to you, Bob, and the work of the Connect Center and the ways that you are cultivating the common good. And thankful for all of you in all of your households where you are joining us. The common good that you are cultivating in your community and even in your homes and in your families through this difficult work and those difficult conversations, it is truly world changing. It's good to see all of you and all of your names, and we look forward to seeing your faces next week. It makes me miss all of your faces even more. So as you are able, I'll have you stand and extend your hands to receive this blessing. As we go, in the midst of the chilling cold of this blizzard, may we be hearts strangely warmed people, knowing that while the winds of systems, structures, and powers blow strong, loving that which God loves and seeking the common good are even stronger and an even better best choice. May that be so.
Thank you.
Thank you all.